Now, I am not aware. If you are not aware, a lot is happening in Trinidad and Tobago right now, specifically when we look at the rise in crime rate. And so this has triggered the government to make their move. And this morning we are talking about that and lots more with Inspector Dexter Miller, who is going to give us our TTPS update this morning. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
Now, I didn't want to rush to revealing to everyone, especially those who are unaware, but by now they should know that a huge announcement has been made this morning as the government responds to the rise in crime rate by announcing a state of emergency.
Yes, I myself has not been made aware, but for those of us who are not sure, it's a period of public emergency made by the president. Within 3 days, she will present to the Speaker of the House the specifics of that proclamation. And that period by law under the Constitution, Section 9, is 15 days. So on advice of the Prime Minister, the President would have made that proclamation. So we just have to wait on the specifics that will roll out for the public to know exactly what is the specifications of such a proclamation.
Right, and because a lot of information has not yet come to the fore on this particular state of emergency and what that would include, we can't really go into details. But the last time we saw a state of emergency being called here in Trinidad and Tobago, that was during the COVID-19 pandemic, where persons were being encouraged to stay inside, especially after certain hours. So we don't want to preempt what this one may require.
Yes.
But when we look at it holistically, we see that this is a situation where the government is no longer calling everyone to be all hands on deck. We are being forced to have all hands on deck because now, as a country, we now have to comply with different circumstances.
Well, I wouldn't say force, because the proclamation generally will entail everyone to be on deck. So it's not a matter of force. It's a measure that would have been taken now because of the situation. Whatever the situation is, I said the specifics, we are not sure, which we will be notified within 3 days according to the Constitution. So it's a measure being taken because of the situation.
Right. And so for those of you guys who are unaware, this morning on the 30th of December 2024, we had a press release that came out from the Office of the Prime Minister's Communication Unit, and it indicated that pursuant to Section 8 of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Her Excellency Christine Carla Kangaloo, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and Commander-in-Chief, has, on the advice of the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, declares a state of public emergency, being satisfied that the circumstances of Section 8(2)(c) of the Constitution exist. The circumstances warranting the declaration of the public emergency are based on the advice of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to the National Security Council of heightened criminal activity which endangers the public safety. And so this is where we are this morning. I think for many of us, we are just coming down from that holiday vacation, and we are still in that awe of the mixing the sorrel with the ginger beer, and everything else. So this morning coming and hearing that, it's very sobering to think that while some of the population might still be in a situation where they're wondering if they should show up to work this morning because we're still in the holiday season, something bigger is happening. And the government has noticed and acknowledged the height or the magnitude of what some persons are completely removed from and unaware of. Yes. And bringing it to the forefront for us to really wake up this morning and understand that something bigger is happening behind the scenes that we, the public, need to be not only made aware of, but be more vigilant in dealing with that?
Yes, let us be mindful that the Prime Minister is the chairman of the National Security Council. In his capacity, he would receive certain information, and based on that information, he would have made his recommendation to the President. She, on being satisfied that there may be merit or justification of the information, will make that proclamation. So it's not something that happens overnight or somebody just wake up and decide that we need a state of emergency. It goes with careful consideration, it goes with intelligence, it goes with information, it goes with reviewing what is happening. So we have to understand that it is a calculated situation of a warranted move which is necessary at this time.
Excellent. And when we look even at the Tobago context now, some of the things that automatically happen when there's a state of emergency is that there is increased powers for the armed guards, being the defense force and other armed forces. Their responsibility and their powers increase. Can you tell us about what that might look like? Does it look like a partnership between the TTPS and the defense force, more presence of police in public areas? You might look out your door and see police and soldiers walking together up and down your street, just patrolling on a regular day. What does that look like?
Well, we have already have the collaboration between the Defense Force and the TTPS. With this state of emergency being called, I know the Commissioner of Police and the Chief of Defense Staff would now receive specific instructions to initiate certain plans and put certain programs into practical context. So we would see a heightened presence of both, or all the agencies for that matter, under National Security 1. So we are to expect a more vigilant presence. We are asking persons to be patient and be understanding with the authorities in their dispensation of how we treat with the state of emergency situation. So it's just a fact that we would receive instructions coming down the ladder, to which we would take into effect, and we would try to balance that with the public dispensation as not to disrupt too much.
Okay. Is there a situation where a state of emergency can be called and there is no curfew attached to it?
Well, again, it is based on the specifics of the advice. It is also based on the nature or the reason for calling the state of emergency. The period is 15 days in the first instance. It is subject to the President's discretion, and it goes with specific instructions. If you look at the Constitution, Section 8, there's A, B, and C, and it rolls over to Section 9, which tells you the period for such a proclamation to be fulfilled. So again, it comes with the reason for it being enforced now, and we have to wait on the specifics to roll out, so we'll know exactly what is being treated with under the proclamation.
All right, but is there a chance? Is there no chance of them announcing a state of emergency?
It is not
without a curfew being attached.
But it's not impossible. I mean, we have to examine what does the situation warrant at this time. What is in the best interest for the country at this time? What is the best interest for national security and crime at this time, and the civil public? So it's a balance that must be stricken in the situation.
And even with the economic circumstances and having the business community just trying to become stable moving forward into 2025, and the projections, and even with comments that the Prime Minister would have made in terms of having to be a bit more conservative with the national purse up until 2027, would this state of emergency have a negative impact on the business community?
Well, I wouldn't want to say negative, because the present situation of crime is having an impact on the business community already, whether it's positive or negative. So it affects us all across the board, not only crime, not only the business community, the school population, the young people, the traveling public, you know, the commuting public. It affects us all. So to say it's a negative impact, sometimes a measure how it roll out and how we put it into effect may bring about that necessary change that we want to see at this present time.
I like the fact that you brought that perspective into the discussion, because this might be just what a lot of business persons want to see. You know, this strict handling of the criminal elements in the country, and the government sending a strong message that this level of crime and criminality would not be accepted from here on out, and possibly taking a different approach, maybe even a more heavy-handed approach when pulling out everything from the arsenal to deal with this level of crime. But when we look at it in the Tobago context, how are you seeing that level of strategy in terms of having a zero tolerance approach to crime, especially moving forward in this new year, and ensuring that there isn't a repeat of the high level of murders that we have seen in Tobago in 2024?
Yes, 2024 has been unprecedented. We are now at 26. And before we go further, I want to extend condolences on behalf of the Commissioner of Police to the family of Zachary Lindo, that young man, the last murder we had in Bacalet. The thing about it is this. It's a state, Trinidad and Tobago. We are hearing the cry from all sectors where crime is concerned. Whatever measures are put in place in the Tobago context, I think one of our shortfalls may be resources or the lack thereof. So I know the Commissioner of Police and the Chief Secretary, the ACP Tobago, there are constant dialogue in terms of how resources will be allocated, procured, and distributed so that we can have a heightened presence or increase the presence of law enforcement across the board. So resources is one of the things that are being looked at. It's being targeted, it's being treated with, and we expect a greater presence and a change of situations where law enforcement is concerned come 2025. There's also new initiatives and programs that are being put in place currently that will bear fruit as we roll over into the new year. So there are things that are in the pipeline, so to speak, to bring to fruition some forward in the situation.
Excellent. And when it comes to creating a heightened level of public confidence in the police service in Tobago, what are some of the strategies that your team has been implementing to get people confident in the work of the TTPS again, specifically coming out of a year where there was a number of murders happening in Tobago?
Well, programs like these, and we want to thank Tobago Updates for allowing us to partner in the communication. We have walkabouts in our communities. We have town meetings. We have our station council meetings. So there are continued reach out and outreach, education, sensitization, awareness of the situations that the public can also partner with us. Law enforcement is so delicate that it's not only the police or the defense force have their part to play. In order for us to be successful, we need that input from the public that would bring about the end result that we want to see.
Excellent. And when it comes to training specifically for new officers and older officers, what are some of the strategies that you would be implementing within this new year, maybe within the first 2 quarters of 2025?
Customer service has always been ongoing. It is always been tailored or redefined, so to speak. From the academy standpoint, there are new programs for the recruitment stage of a police officer's career that initiates what happens on the outside in the long run. For the older officers, there are constant training in terms of how we treat with members of the public, how we treat with speaking to them outside there, addressing their concerns, going the extra mile. So there are programs that are ongoing now that we are looking at to have that change constant and revolving.
Right. And even as we wrap up our discussion this morning, is there anything you want to say to the public and specifically businesses that may be worried about the negative impact that this state of emergency may be having on them?
Well, as I said before, the state of emergency may not be negative. We have to know how we're looking at it and wait and see what is the specifics. But as we come to a close, it's the end of the year. We know there are traditional ways of ringing the new year, the fireworks, the scratch bombs, the bamboo bursting. We want to implore persons to be a bit more careful in their dispensation. Be mindful about children and fireworks, the minors, treating with the fireworks, use them in open areas. Always have a guide for them. We also want to implore persons who partying to have a designated driver. The road safety aspect of it, sleep deprivation, because we want to be partying the whole day, whole night. If you are deprived of sleep, please try not to go behind a steering wheel. So there are measures that we want to ask persons as we come to a close of the year to be mindful of the road safety aspect of the situation. Allowing the children to fly kites in the no-zone areas in and around the airport, be mindful of the electric wires and so on. And generally, it has been a tough year for the police and the public, but we continue to partner with each other to find solutions.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you so much, Inspector Miller, for your time this morning and for, assuring us that we don't have to look at the state of an emergency in a negative way, and it may just be what is needed during this time.
Yes.
So guys, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we will return with much more conversation right after this. See you soon.